Ready.
Okay. Welcome to Podnutz Pro, episode number 1. New show. We just started. First episode. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited, and our co-host is excited. I'll introduce him in a second. Podnutz Pro is a show for computer technicians who are interested in small business, servers, business class things that are not the normal residential things we talk about on Podnutz Daily. It's also going to be a great show if you're interested in making a transition from residential to business. And co-hosting the show is Matt Rainey. You guys know him from the episodes of Podnutz Daily he's done that you guys have raved about, saying we want more server stuff, more business stuff. Well, we're doing a show all about it. So let me introduce him now. Matt, he doesn't have video today. Does not have video today, but he will promise he will have it next time. Matt, how you doing today?
Doing good, Steve.
So thank you for doing this show. I mean, this is definitely something that people want, and I think it's going to be great. Are you excited?
I am excited. Looking forward to it. Hope people like it.
Yeah, me too. Well, that's what the show's about. That is the co-host, and Matt, like we do with Linux for the rest of us. Matt's bringing the goods. He's going to start off, and I'll ask all the questions I have along the way. If you guys want to watch us live at any time, we do this show Wednesday nights, yes, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's when you can check us out. You just go to podnutz.com. We'll be right there up on the homepage at that time. All right, Matt, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, tonight for the first show, let's talk about routers. Routers in your business.
Okay.
You know, I go a lot of places, and what I see a lot is these little Linksys or D-Link routers in a business.
Okay.
And just so everybody's clear, you know, what a router is, because some people may not know. It's not just something that connects your network to the internet. It's not just something that allows you to split the internet. You need to think of it as your main security device, your gateway security to the internet. It's not just you trying to get out to the internet. It's everybody trying to get to your network.
No, I bet a lot of people don't think of it that way.
And almost as important, if not more important than what's coming into your network, it's what's going out of your network.
Really?
So
how do you figure?
Well,
you mean like credit card information, passwords?
No, not so much, but mainly let's just say you have a $50 off-the-shelf Linksys router, and that's what most people have in their business because that's what's on the store shelves. And unless you're a reseller of some place that has access to different kind of routers, you're going to buy what's available. And most of the time, that's the little D-Links and Linksys routers.
Gotcha.
What they can't do is, for the most part, control outgoing traffic. And that's very important. When you're doing business, most likely, hopefully, you've got a business internet account, and usually you're going to have a static IP address.
Okay.
So you have the same IP address. Now, even if you're not hosting your own mail, let's say you're using Google or whatever for your mail offsite. A lot of times I see these little cheap routers, they don't control outgoing traffic. So I'll get a call from a client and they say, our internet is crawling. It's slow as can be. Well, you go over there and of course they got a cheap router.
Okay.
First thing you do is reboot the router. Well, it's fast now, okay? But that's usually a temporary fix. So you look into it more, and what you can find a lot of times, and I've seen this quite a bit, if you don't control what's going out, you can have a lot of stuff going out that's bad. Most of the times, it's these SMTP engines that are sending out spam and junk mail. And if you don't control what's going out, that stuff is free to go do whatever it wants. I had a client just today. They called their internet slow, and they wouldn't let us put in a good router. So they had at least 4 or 5 computers infected with it was the RU stock spam bot sending out mail constantly.
And that's what
off.
was slowing down their connection?
Oh yeah, because they had so much traffic going out that the cheap little router couldn't handle it.
Jeez.
So you and of course I checked their IP for a blacklist, and of course they're listed on blacklists because that they are sending out spam. So
So
legitimately they were listed.
they didn't even
Uh,
know.
they didn't even know. They had no clue because these spam bots generally don't give any indication of like my program's not working, or you might a spyware program, you might get those fake anti-spyware pop-ups. You are infected, click here to buy. You don't have those with these spam bots.
Right,
They work
right,
in the background. They don't want you to know they're there
right,
because they
right.
want their spam to go out.
Sure.
So, a lot about is outgoing traffic. Cheap routers just can't do it. Now, incoming, of course, is important too. Uh, the in is different kinds of filtering or checks that can be done on incoming traffic. Now, a lot of it, what you'll see is just basic packet filtering. Um, you might go into the router and say, okay, I want port 80 going to this IP address, or I want port 25 going to this IP address. And if it's just doing plain packet filtering, that's not much security. All it's doing is checking header information, IP address, source and destination. It's not looking at the content of the packets. It doesn't even care about the state of the connection. So let's say you have a connection to a website. You're receiving traffic, you're sending traffic. The router, some routers know that you have this connection going. Plain old packet filtering doesn't care about any connection coming in or out. It's what's called stateless. So it doesn't know the state of the connection. So any packet coming in, it just looks at what kind of packet it is. If it's 80, fine. Where's 80 supposed to go? It's supposed to go here. It doesn't care if it's a legitimate packet or not. It just sends it.
Okay.
That's not very good. There's really no security there at all.
And these are just the off-the-shelf normal residential routers. This is what they do.
Right. Most of them. Some are getting better where they'll do more stuff. But there's a reason they're $50. Don't forget.
Right.
I mean, they're not doing much. And a residential router usually is not needing to redirect different traffic to different computers. It doesn't you don't have a mail server, an FTP server. You don't really care about that stuff usually.
Right.
So as you get to more and more expensive routers, they're going to be doing more and more checks on the packets coming in and out. So the next level might be, the other one's stateless, doesn't care about the connection state, doesn't even care there is a previous connection. It just lets everything in. So if you have a stateful inspection, what it's called, it cares about your connection state. It says, is this packet part of an existing connection, or is it just some rogue packet trying to come in?
Right.
So that's a little better. It knows if it's part of a connection or not. And usually they'll look at the content of the packet, what's inside the packet, not just the header information. It's a little better. Not that great still. As you go up, you'll get something that has proxies in it, hardware proxies, to where you can do a lot of stuff with that. It works on all 7 layers. And I'm not going to get into the OSI model, but it works on all 7 layers. So it knows what's in that router. Packet. It knows everything about that packet.
7 layers of what?
Of the OSI model, you got the network, the application.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We're not going to get into that, but it just does more checks
Gotcha.
of what's in the packet than the other types of filtering.
Gotcha.
And what it does is, if let's say you have a basic router, you make a connection. Pretty much, you make a connection to whatever web server you're browsing on, let's say. With these proxy servers, they're very, very secure. What happens is your computer makes a connection with the proxy in the firewall, and then that proxy makes a connection to the web server, let's say.
Okay.
So you don't have a direct connection. So you're really protected behind that connection. That's the most secure. But of course, as you go higher and higher of what the firewall, what the router is doing, of course, you need more CPU power, you need more RAM, you need more things to monitor all these connections.
I see.
And of course, that means more money. Now, a lot of people think if they're doing routers in business, they need Cisco. That's not true. We don't have any I'm sorry. We rarely put Cisco routers out.
Okay.
They're overkill, usually.
How much is a router like you're talking about that you would put into a small business? How much does it cost?
They're usually around 700 or so,
Okay.
you know.
Now, what about firewalls on these normal routers, these residential routers? These firewalls aren't stopping any of this stuff that you're talking about? Don't they come with
Uh,
built-in firewalls?
well, like I said, but it's doing certain kind of filtering where it's not really doing any kind of checks on it.
Okay. So it is doing filtering, and that is
It's doing network address translation. So it's
I
saying
see.
it looks at the packet and it might say, okay, it tears down the packet and says, okay, you were supposed to go to this internal address. I'm gonna send you there, and it rebuilds
Gotcha.
the packet, sends it off.
Gotcha.
It's not doing much. It's mainly looking at the header information only.
I see.
Um,
All right. So you were talking about the brands. You said no, you don't use
yeah,
Cisco much. What do
and
you?
and the right and the brands. I don't want to get too much into brands. We use WatchGuards. We're familiar with them. There's SonicWall, which does pretty good too. We've had some of those out there. We've had issues with. That's just personal preference more than anything else, because SonicWall makes a good product as well. Um,
You use WatchGuard, you said?
I use WatchGuard, and the kind of things that you can do with this stuff is that a typical WatchGuard that we have in service, it can break down to, I might want to block. It has you can block content types, application types on a per site level. So it can get pretty complicated. But if I don't want a certain type of content running, I can block all that like JavaScript. I can block JavaScript on all pages just by default.
Okay.
But then if a user calls and says, "Hey, I'm trying to get to this website, but I can't," I can unblock JavaScript for that site.
I see.
So you can get really granular about what you're allowing and what you're not allowing.
Can you remote in and change all this stuff on the router?
Oh yeah, yeah, right. And that's another thing we have. With the watch guards, you can have a central console. So from my computer in my office, I have a central console that I have access to all the watch guards that we have out, regardless of where they are. So I don't have to log into their server and then get into an interface on their server. I can do it right from my computer.
Right. That's great.
So and it gets pretty complicated about what you can do, and they're not simple devices to learn. So don't just get one and think it's not like a D-Link or a Linksys where a few little options to set up. These things can get very complicated. But it's good that's why you should pick one and learn that one. So don't put a SonicWall in here and then do WatchGuard. You want to pick one solution and go with it.
Why? So just
That's
you
how you're
you
gonna
become
learn.
expert at it. You mean?
Right. Because the interfaces are a lot different, and
I
if you
see.
have to, just it's best just to pick one and go with it.
I see.
Um, Another thing about these nicer routers is the logging that they do. Um, these little D-Links and Linksyses, they might keep a little log of the past 10 connection attempts or 10 things that happened. You hear on these TV shows where they check their router logs and they found this suspicious activity. Well, these things have router logs, real router logs,
Right.
everything. So I can see everything that happened. If I need to go back, I can see what happened. I can see what happened. If somebody can't get to something right now, I can easily just check the live log and it'll tell me what's going on. No problem.
How long do these logs get kept for?
You can as long as you got a hard drive space to keep the logs, you can keep them.
Gotcha.
Um,
Do they tell a lot? Do you troubleshoot a lot of problems by looking at the logs?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And, a lot of times if I have a watch guard laying around and somebody says they're slow, especially if it's a new client, I'll go and just program their watch guard in real quick and just watch the logs, and I can see all the traffic going in and out.
Wow.
And that's how you can easily find if there's a infection on a computer. You'll spot it right away. You'll see tons of traffic. It's funny. I've had people log out I tell everybody, log out your computers just for a few minutes, so that way you're not running anything. So people logged out, you really shouldn't see much traffic in the logs. And if they're infected with something, you're just going to see the logs light up from a certain IP address, and you know that's your problem.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, bro. So, I mean, last show on Podnutz Pro, you talked about servers. Today you're talking about routers. Is this something like when you go and install a system in a small business, you do a router and a server every time?
I try, yeah. We're always gonna quote them a new router if
Okay.
they don't have one, and it's just for their protection. It's for our protection too. I don't want to set up a network and then, they're constantly slow. They're constantly having to reboot their router. It looks bad on us.
Yeah,
They just
I do find it interesting about your company. I think it's great that you don't settle. I mean, because you're going to look like the bad guy if they're stuck with cheap equipment. So you don't want, it's not a good reputation to have for your company. So
no.
you kind of demand that they buy the good stuff.
Right. And sometimes they're not going to. And I
Hmm.
understand that it's more expensive, but that's when you have to know how to sell it. You might let's say you're hosting your own mail server
Right.
and you don't allow me to put this in. I can't control what's going out. If you get on a blacklist once and you can't send mail for a day or two, how much is that worth?
Right. What happens when you get on a blacklist? You can't get off of them, can you?
You can. I had one today because they didn't let us put one in. We had to find the infection, so it's fairly easy to find the infection, even with a cheap router, because if you look in the logs, even if it's the last 10 attempts, you can still see stuff going out port 25. So in their particular case, found the computer, took it off the network, and we cleaned it up. And and what I do is to check a blacklist. I think it's mxtoolbox.com.
Okay.
Um, mxtoolbox.com. There's a section for blacklists. So you click on that blacklist tab and you put in your server's IP address and you hit the little button that says blacklist check. This will check pretty much all the blacklists that you need to be concerned about.
Hmm.
And it'll just tell you if you're listed or not. And if you're listed, you can click on the link to follow it and see the process to request removal.
I see.
Now the problem is if you just see them on a blacklist and you just hit request removal, well, if you get relisted again, then it gets harder to get off.
I see.
So they might let you request once, maybe even twice, but the third time they're going to give you some problems.
Right. So you need to make sure it's cleared up before
You
you.
need to make sure it's clear. And a lot of times I'll see people requesting this too soon.
Right.
They'll find one infection and say that's it, and they request. But still, even if you find one infection, you still need to watch the logs for a little while and make sure that you're not seeing anything else going through the
I
logs.
see.
Um,
Good.
um, you know, with these more expensive routers too, a lot of times they sell them per connection. So, Linksys or D-Link, you don't have a connection limit
Right.
on the box, really. I don't know if you know Apple routers, but the Apple Airport Express says good for 10 users, and the
Extreme.
app with the Extreme says 50.
Oh.
And they're being realistic because if you put 200 people on it, you're going to have issues.
Right.
You know,
Is that a good router, the Airport Extreme?
it is good.
Better. Better.
If you like Apple products, you're gonna like that one. People who don't want Apple products, it won't be your only Apple product.
Okay.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
yeah. So if you have all PCs, you're not gonna say I want an Apple Airport Extreme.
Right.
You
Okay.
know, um, plus the people who have all in a home and a PCs, you tell them a $200 router, they're gonna say, well, really, $200 router, and they're gonna opt for the $50 router.
Right. It's definitely not business class.
Uh, well,
There's-
I wouldn't put it in for a business.
Okay.
You know, we stick with the watch guards, and if they don't want to go with that, there used to be some Cisco, or they were actually Linksys branded, which Cisco bought Linksys, but there are some cheaper options, like in the $130 to $200 range. That's Cisco business routers,
Right.
and while they're not as good, you can still at least control what's going out.
Hmm.
So I can still say block port 25 from going out. And even if even if, like I say, if you go to a business and they don't host their own mail server, you still want to block 25 going out. If you don't block anything else, block port 25 going out.
I see.
Um, and most times, even if the router is capable of doing it, it's not done. The default rule in most routers is to allow outgoing everything.
Hmm.
You know, I've even seen WatchGuards and Sonic Walls set up where they define incoming rules to route the mail here and they route this there, but they don't block 25 going out.
Why not? Because they don't want to have
Or
you think that.
they just don't know.
Okay.
and what I've seen a lot is I've seen people do a rule, and this might be over some people's head, but I've seen people do a rule where they say, okay, port 25 coming in, send that to my mail server. And then they'll have a rule that says allow outgoing port 25. Okay. But allow outgoing port 25 does not equal block port 25 from everybody else. It just means, yes, if it's going out on 25, let it go.
I see.
But you've already got a rule that says by default, allow everything out.
Sure.
So what you have to do is create a separate rule that says if it's going from port 25, block it for everybody. And then another rule that says allow port 25 on this IP address only.
I see.
And if you want to check this, if you just want to check and see if your router is set up to block 25, you can just drop down to a command prompt on any computer in your network and type in telnet space any known, so telnet space the IP address of any known mail server space 25. So let's just say a mail server is sitting at 45.166.220.5.
Okay.
You do telnet space that IP address space 25. If you get a hello or a handshake, port 25 is open for you. If you get nothing and it just sits there forever, port 25 is closed.
Okay.
And what we do is if we check our rules. So we put a new router in that business today because they got hit by a blacklist and they didn't like it.
Sure.
See, before it wasn't real. Yes, we could get blocked sometime in the future. We'll take that chance. Well, they didn't like it when they got blocked.
And they were running a crappy little router?
Right.
So what did you do?
We put a WatchGuard in, and when I create these rules, I test them. So I'll block 25. I'll do this telnet, and we have some known mail servers. We have a mail server we host. So I'll telnet to that IP 25 from the server. I get a handshake. I go to a workstation. I do the same thing, and it's blocked. No response, and I can see in the logs where it was blocked.
Okay, so the server can get out, but none of the other computers can get out.
Yep, because if you have your own mail server in-house, that needs to be able to send out.
Gotcha.
A lot of times customers also want to say, I want to block Joe from getting on the internet. Just Joe. I don't want no one else, just Joe. Well, with a better router that controls outgoing traffic, I can block his computer from getting out to the internet.
Good.
And it's very easy. If you don't have a good router that can do this, there are ways to do it, but it's not as clean as just blocking it in the router.
Right.
Because there's ways around it. If they have a bad router, first I'll tell them, you need a better router. So I can do that for you. That's my first step, is try and sell that router.
Right.
Because they really need it.
Right.
I'm not trying to make money. They need the router. It's for their protection. And if they want to do things like that, they'll need it. If they just don't want to do it, or if I know they can't afford it, there are ways to do it, and
but then you're saying Joe can find his way around it. Joey Facebook.
Right. If he knows what he's doing, it's easy to find his way around it.
Right.
And if things get more complicated, let's say they don't host their own mail server. Let's say his mail's on Gmail, but then the owner says, I want him to block from the internet. Well, he may not understand that when he's blocked from the internet, he can't get mail either.
I see.
His mail's on the internet. So if it's a POP server somewhere and a good router, I can block port 80 and leave port 110 open for him. He can still get mail.
I see.
So you have a lot of options when you have a good router.
Huh.
When you have a bad router, you start getting 20, 25 people. They're all downloading this. They're streaming music. They're downloading videos. You're going to notice an effect on your internet. It's going to slow down. And you have to explain that to customers in a nice way. I mean, you always want to be respectful and don't insult their intelligence, about why it's happening. You remind them this. You can show them. I show them this little box right here is what connects you to the internet, and I'll show them. I said this is a $50 device from off the shelf. It's not capable of doing what you want it to do. Sometimes they understand, sometimes they don't. They'll say, well, we'll tell our people not to stream music. They say, is that good? I said, well, you can try it and see. I said, but telling them was one thing. If you had a good router, I could block it so they wouldn't be able to do it at all,
Right.
especially if they have limited bandwidth. You know, telling them not to do it, how do you know they're not doing it? You know, there's no way. If I block it, they're not doing it. They're not taking up your bandwidth.
Right. Definitely.
Um, so, and of course, most people's main thing is price about these things.
Well, you're talking
You know,
about a big price difference, but I guess you got to dish it out.
you are because most our clients who have this stuff, I hear a lot of on the shows talk about the main thing people do is virus removal, spyware removal.
Right.
We don't have that. I might get one or two computers a week that are infected with something.
Now, why don't you have that?
Well, we have a lot of things in place to hit to stop this from even getting to the network. So our routers, another thing our routers can do is they can do web filtering. So I can block certain types of websites. Okay, and OpenDNS can do it as well. That's web-based, you know, but that can be bypassed pretty easily if you know how to do it.
Right.
All you gotta do is change your DNS servers on your local machine, and now you're bypassing OpenDNS.
So to
If
get
you,
through this on the router, you have to log into the router, and if Joe wants to hack through this, he has to know the
You'd
router.
have to have the login for the router.
Okay.
And then one advantage of this being a more complicated router is you're not going to have average users messing around in this thing.
Right. Right.
The typical user who may want to log into his router and do something can easily find the documentation for his D-Link router.
Right.
He's not going to find that on an upper class router. It's not going to be that easy.
Gotcha.
So we can control what kind of websites they're going to. We're doing these things have proxies built in, so it filters all kind of application types. It knows that this is not a good content in this packet. It'll block it.
Hmm.
Apart from this, we do spam filtering for our users that we host their mail. So their mail doesn't go right to their server. It goes to our servers for filtering and then goes to their network.
What do you use for filtering?
We have a Barracuda device that filters this.
Is it it's a hardware?
Right. It's a hardware. It's an appliance, so it's got whatever the Barracuda software runs. It's Barracuda. So we have our network operating center that we have on a really good fiber line that their mail hits our server and is sent to them.
Gotcha.
Now,
but is Barracuda only for spam filtering, or does that do a bunch of stuff?
they have a lot of different products.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, one good thing about this router is I can set in the router to only accept mail from our spam filtering server. Now, the benefit of that is if I left my router open to accept mail from anybody, people can bypass my spam filtering server and send it right to their server. So they're going to see more spam.
Right.
By doing it this way, they can't bypass our filtering server because the router would just discard the traffic if it's not coming from our server.
I see.
Because legitimate mail is going to hit our server and then go to their server.
Right. That's pretty smart.
So a lot of stuff we're blocking before it even gets in the network. If you're relying just on desktop antivirus, the stuff's already getting into your network. Now you're relying on your computer to block it.
Right.
The computers don't even get it the way we have it. It's not coming through mail. More than likely, it's not coming through mail. And it's not coming through the router. So we don't see a lot of this stuff. We have maybe a few hundred clients, businesses, and if we didn't have this stuff in place, we'd be removing viruses and spyware constantly all day long, every day.
Right.
And that's just not what we want to do. It's not good for the customer. They don't want their computers in our office always removing viruses. It doesn't look good on us. It goes back to our reputation of how we keep them up and running. It's not just a service up and running; it's their workstations up and running.
Huh. It sounds like a great system. It's very clean.
It is clean. It has a price, but we've never had somebody complain afterwards. They complain
when they first buy it.
It might complain when they buy it, but You know, we've had quite a few clients, business owners know other business owners, so we get a lot of referrals. All of our business is referrals. We don't advertise.
Hmm.
Um, and so we get a lot of calls. Can you come look at my stuff? We're always doing, this is always our problem. This is our problem.
Right, right,
And
right.
a lot of times it stems back to the router.
Hmm.
Stuff's coming in that shouldn't come in. Stuff's going out that shouldn't go out.
It's
It's not keeping up with how many computers they have. You know,
it's fitting that this, we're talking about this in the first episode. If this is like the main problem,
and it's a good way to get in. If they may not want to buy a server right now,
right?
they may have a server, they just have other issues, and a lot of it can be tied back to this stuff. So, one way to get in is to, if you identify the problem as the router, you can just put a router in and let them run with that. If they like it, they'll know that you at least know what you're doing. And so when they have other issues, you're their computer guy. I've got a lot of clients because all we did was replace the router and program it the right way, and they started running fantastic. They loved it.
Really. Now,
So when they had, of course, we're their computer guys. They call us now.
how much can you make per router? Like, what would you suggest? Where did you buy them, and how much can you mark them up?
Well, we're a reseller for WatchGuard, so I think it's something. Um, we sell them for the same price if you went to WatchGuard's site and bought it from their store.
What does
Um,
it take to become a reseller for them?
Pretty much just sign up.
Good, good. So, do you make profit on the routers?
Yeah, so we're a reseller. So I think the markup is anywhere from 10 to 20%. Um, and there's add-ons you can buy. So there's it's called Web Blocker, and for the WatchGuard it's called Web Blocker. So that's what blocks websites based on content. So I can say I want to block gambling websites, and it blocks gambling websites. So that's a yearly subscription. So you can make money reselling that. Um, the warranty on the watch guards is called live security. When you keep live security up to date, you get updates for the router, the software. You get advanced replacement. So if your watch guard goes down, you got one the next day.
Hmm.
That's replaced. Um, so you can resell the live security. You can make money there.
Sure.
Um, now,
Cool.
see some people, saying they wouldn't mark them up at all. Um,
I don't know
If you're doing
why.
this a lot, yeah, if you're doing this a lot, I mean, we mark it up because if they're going to go price shop somewhere else, they're going to see the real price and they'll know that it's a fair price.
Right.
I mean, because there is overhead. We have to order the stuff. We have to do things to get it ready. So there's overhead. There's time spent ordering it. It's not like there's no time. So the markup covers your time to, research the product they need because there's a lot of different types of routers out there. There's different classes, even a watch guard, there's different classes. So you've got to order this stuff. You've got to, do the billing. It's a markup, you may mark it up 10% or 15%. I think there needs to be some markup,
Sure. I don't think there's a question about that.
and then it takes a little time to program it. So you can, of course, we charge them to program it for their network. Um, and another advantage of some of these nicer routers is they have abilities they may not use now, but they may use later. VPN connections. Um, you you have an office right now. They may not need a VPN connection, but let's say they open a branch office later on. Well, they want to connect to the main office. So now you can sell another WatchGuard router. You connect those two together with a VPN. Now they have all the access to the resources on the main network
Huh.
with doing nothing on the client machines. So it's a virtual private network, meaning they're on the network, they're just not connected directly to you. They're connected through the internet.
I see.
Um, and the more expensive router you get, the more throughput you have on the VPN connection.
Hmm.
So some of them might have 30 megabytes, connection for the VPN. A cheap router may have 10 megabytes throughput for the VPN. So the higher up you go, the more throughput you can get through that VPN channel.
I see.
You know,
How high do they go? What's the top of the line?
um, you know what? Top of line, we don't even deal with top of the line. Top of the line, you're looking at enterprise level stuff. We for the small business that we do, we might get to the second level. and I think they may do something in the lines of actually 100 throughput for the VPN.
How much is that? Like $1,200?
No, that's probably more than that. You know, they the new models. We used to get them for about 600, but WatchGuard just came out with new models, and I think they're selling around 700.
Okay.
Um,
Just,
but
just curious.
again,
Just curious.
you got yeah, yeah, and so that you got to pick one. Player. Unfortunately, there's no that I know of simulators for these things, like there is for. I know there's a site where you can have a simulator for some of the routers, but I'm not sure if they have them for the WatchGuards and Sonic
You
walls.
mean just the menu system? You mean?
Right. To learn, just to see what it looks like.
Right. Right.
Um, so unfortunately, you have to get one. And so if you're planning on getting into this and doing business support,
Yeah.
just get one for yourself. You know, you have one on your network. Now you can program yours so you're familiar with it.
I know it's a lot of guys are saying I'm not going to spend $600 for a router for myself.
Well, and there's a cost of doing business.
Yeah, I
We
know.
had to get them and learn them. So,
I agree.
you know, when we started this, we learned them and we got them. And if you're a reseller, you get it at a reseller price, so you're not paying the full price.
Right. Right.
And actually, there may be programs where you get an NFR, not for resale, where they'll send you one.
An NFR? Oh, not for resale.
Yeah,
Okay.
not for resale. And if you're a reseller, you can request a demo unit. So they'll send you a unit for 30 days. I think they'll send you a unit for 30 days
That's
just to use and
That's
play.
a great idea.
So, you can get it, play with it for 30 days. I'm pretty sure they still offer the demo units because they want to sell them.
Sure. I think it's a great idea. I definitely should you should definitely ask.
When you sign up for a reseller account, you'll be assigned an account representative. If you just ask that person for a demo unit, they'll send one.
Cool.
I mean, they've come to our office before. They've from Texas. They drove to our office to meet us, and because we were
Really?
selling a lot of them,
Damn.
so they wanted to come meet us and talk to us and see what else they could do for us.
Wine you and dine you and
No, it was just a meeting in the office. You know, gave us some super secret phone numbers to call if we needed anything, that kind of.
That's awesome.
The live security is good. If we have a problem with a watch guard and we can't figure it out, you have a reseller support number that you can call. You'll get right through. They'll talk to somebody. They're knowledgeable. They'll help you out.
You don't have to wait on hold for 20 minutes with Netgear in the Philippines?
No, no,
Okay.
no, no, no,
Very good.
no. And all this goes back to making you look good. If you can get the client back up quickly, you look good.
Yeah. Hey,
And
I think to do the job right, you need the right tools, and this is going to be a wake-up call for some people, but this is good stuff because that's what you need to know. I mean, I bet there's so many small businesses operating out there with crappy routers, and this could make you look like the hero. You know what I mean? Okay, they spend a little bit more up front, but then they never have a problem. Then they love you. Then they give you word of mouth.
Yep.
Referrals.
Yep. I mean, we have. Yes, I've had, and it happens all the time when these, I tell them, well, reboot your router. Next time you're slow, reboot your router,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see how it goes. And they're faster, and they call me back. I rebooted and it was faster, but now
Yeah.
it's slow.
Yeah.
I say, well, you can keep rebooting it, or we can get you a real router
Right.
that won't have to do that.
Right.
And eventually they will get it, and they're happy. They don't have the problem again, and for them that's worth it because their downtime and interruption of business is worth it.
I agree.
You know,
I think it's smart.
when they're doing, let's say they're doing remote connections from home, just a basic remote connection to their computer. If their router's locked up because of whatever reason, they can't connect. They don't want to drive to the office and reboot the router.
Right.
They're trying to connect from home because they don't want to go to the office.
Right. They'll eventually get tired of it.
Oh yeah, I've had office managers where they didn't want to approve the quote until the boss couldn't connect from home, and then she says, "Well, that router you quoted me, will that stop that?" I said, "Most likely, yes." And since the boss had an issue once, they approved it,
Right.
and they didn't have any more problems with that.
That's the way those things go, especially like backing up. I mean, we'll probably cover that in a later episode, but
Oh yeah,
nobody backs up until they have a tragedy.
well, yeah, usually. But
Yeah.
if you're going to a business, that's one of the things you need to check. That's your job to check and make sure
Yeah.
they have. And if they don't want one, just make them aware that they don't have one.
Yeah. And make sure
And
it's
you're
in
not a
make sure
magician,
it's in the agreement that you're not responsible.
Right, and I remind them constantly if they don't have one. We have I think only one client that doesn't have one. Um, they needed to restore something the other day, and I say, "Well, did you ever get a approve the quote for the backup we sent you?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, then what do you want me to restore from?" He said, "Okay, order the backup."
That's awesome.
Um,
Now, we did have any voicemail that somebody sent in. We'll do it at the end of the show, but just do we have any more to talk about on routers?
let me check my little notes
All right,
here.
take your time. Take your time.
Let's see. No, I think that's good. Just main thing blocking traffic out just as important as blocking traffic in and controlling what's coming in. Can't do that with those cheap routers.
That's a great first lesson. All right, let me pull up the voicemail. Is that cool, Matt?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And I love how somebody sent us a voicemail before we even did our first episode.
Yeah, that's cool.
And by the way, we've got lots of feedback. I'm getting email after email saying, "Go with the Podnutz Pro show. Go with the Podnutz Pro show." So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this so far. This is a voicemail from, I believe it's Adam. Here we go.
Hey, Steve, this is Adam with TechEd PC, also Primus462 in the forum.
Matt, can you hear that voicemail? Matt, are you able to hear that voicemail?
Only through my computer.
Okay, I'm going to play it again. Here we go.
Hey, Steve, this is Adam with TechEd PC, also Primus462 in the forums, and calling to leave a message for your first episode of Podnutz Pro. I have a small business who has a Windows 2000 server. It's running on a Dell PowerEdge T600, I believe. It's got two 60-gigabyte SCSI hard drives in it, and one of the first hard drive is partitioned into two 30-gigabit partitions, and then it has a second hard drive. And the C drive, which is part of the partition, is full, only has 60 megabytes left. So I'm needing to expand the partition. So I was wondering if you guys had any suggestion for the plan of attack for that. I don't have any experience with servers, but I assume it's just like a regular PC. My plan of attack was going to be I have an old version of Ghost to take and image the drive, and then use to have a backup, then use partition magic on it to expand that partition C drive, and then basically I figured that would solve my problem. So just wondering if on this first show, if you had any other suggestions or anything to be careful about, I guess. So thanks for all the work you've done, and I'm looking forward to the new show. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm going to let Matt listen to the rest of that email because he's got a little bit of a delay on his Ustream. Did you hear that, Matt?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what do you think?
Okay. We Windows 2000 server. Golly.
That's the first out point right there.
Okay. Well, the first thing I check is why is the server full? What's on the C partition that's taking up the space? It may be possible just to move some files off to, if there's a data share on the C drive, it may be possible just to move it to another share, another drive. A lot of times log files will build up on the server that can be deleted. So look for data shares that can be moved, log files. Even I've had to do this before if I really had to. The NT uninstall from the C Windows folder, that stuff can be pretty much deleted. That you only need that if you want to uninstall an update.
Okay.
But that stuff can be maybe just move it away because you can free up a few gigs just from that alone. We've used Acronis I think it's Acronis disk director that can merge or resize that partition. And we've used that on servers with no problem.
Okay.
So he can either merge it or he can expand it. One of those two. We've never had one crash on us.
Okay. And you use Acronis Disk Manager.
Yeah, I think it's Acronis Disk Director.
Or disk director.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's compatible with Windows 2000 though, but geez. I know we've done it on Windows 2000, so maybe you'd have to find an older version if it's not.
Partition Magic does it.
On servers, I think if it detects a server
Oh.
OS, it won't load.
Okay.
I think that's why we had to use Acronis.
I see.
But that's it. Check Acronis disk director. And before that, just see if you can move stuff off or delete stuff.
All right.
And if you're going to use any kind of repartitioning stuff, get a good backup, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, if he's using Windows 2000 server, if he's using Exchange server, he may be able to look and see where that Exchange database is. That might need to be moved off of that. Or there's also Exchange database logs. I've seen people who have Exchange server and they don't run an Exchange backup. If they don't run an Exchange backup, it will never clear those logs, and the logs will just fill up the server. So if he's running Exchange, check where the log files are, check where the database is, make sure it's got a backup so the log files are cleared. I usually try and move stuff before I'll do, because that Acronis is like $600.
It is for disk director?
Yeah,
server
because it's designed for servers.
I see.
So it's not cheap. Nothing with servers is usually cheap. It's usually more expensive.
Right,
so
they really get you.
that's, and when, customers ask, why is it so much? It's got to deal with the server part. So they know you're in business. They want to charge you for it.
Exactly.
So
they know you make a lot of money. That's the answer.
Yeah. That's normally why I try and move stuff, and my first choice would be one, get a new server. I mean, it's Windows 2000 server. It's that thing is not secure.
Right.
I don't know what they're using it for, but if they have a server already, they would probably benefit from the new server.
Cool. Good. All right. Well, that is the answer to that. Thanks for that voicemail, Adam. Hey, we're gonna wrap up the show. If you guys want to email us, you can definitely email us. You could send a mail at mail@podnutz.com. But if you want to ask something, and this is what I recommend, asking Matt directly, just go to the Podnutz forums. His user ID, it's Rain3D, right, Matt, in the forums?
Yes.
Just look him up in the forums. That's podnutz.com/forums. His username is Rain3D. Ask him whatever you want. We could bring it up on the show if it's relevant, and we could definitely do that. If you want to send a voicemail, just like Adam did, call the Podnutz voicemail number. It's 7076-PODNUT. Not with a Z at the end, because I couldn't quite get that number. So it's 7076-PODNUT. Send us a voicemail. We love playing voicemails. We will read your emails, and that would be great. We encourage your participation. All right, Matt, do you have any other things you want to say before you end off?
If somebody, I made a Podnutz Pro Twitter account. So if you want to follow me on Podnutz Pro, I might Twitter out a few funny things that happen during the day, or some little tidbits that I find during the day. Like yesterday, I had a guy. I asked him what kind of computer he had because I was having trouble loading the VPN client, and I was trying to see if he had any new drivers for his network card, and he said he had a DY.
DY?
You know what a DY computer is, Steve?
A DY?
I wrote down DY on a piece of paper.
Oh, I do know what this is.
And then I turned it upside down.
It's an HP.
Yep. HP.
Upside down.
That's the kind of person I deal with a lot of times. They just, in business, they don't want to use a computer. They have to use a computer.
Yes.
At home, they're using a computer usually because they want to.
Right.
In business, it's forced upon them. So you don't always have the most computer savvy people.
Or they don't take care of their computer that much. All right, so follow Matt at Podnutz Pro is the account, right?
Yep.
Twitter.com/Podnutz Pro. Dude, this was awesome. I think it was a great first show. I appreciate you doing it.
Hope everybody liked it.
I think they will. So we'll have this released out to you guys soon. Anybody who watched us live, you got it immediately, right? Spoon-fed right to you. Okay, that's going to be it for first episode of Podnutz Pro. We'll see y'all next time.